peak, goat, zenith fiction. Words with as many definitions as there are people out there. For me, they all point towards one character. Katana Man. And yeah, I'm completely serious. What you're about to witness is me trying to explain the greatness of a character most people consider to be a decent villain and an annoying side character to the best of my ability. And let me be clear, because I know some of you can't separate fiction from reality. Just because you like a character that's a bad person doesn't make you a bad person. I don't agree with anything Katana Man does or represents, but I still love him. Got it? Okay. Spoilers ahead for both the manga and the anime, but you already knew that. Most of what you're about to see are my own reflections and opinions, but I got help on certain parts from Deep Fried Woomy and Medcat33 on Twitter, so if you see their tags in the bottom right, know that it doesn't come from the depths of my empty dome. Oh, and be sure to follow them, they're linked below. Katana Man is a character in Chainsaw Man. Duh. He's the first real antagonist Denji has to face, and can be seen in almost every way as the anti-Denji. I'm not gonna go into specifics this early, it's what the rest of this video's for, but I think he can be summarized pretty easily. You know those AUs of your favorite shows and games, where everyone's just the opposite versions of themselves? Yeah, rip Denji from one of those, and you basically have this guy. To be fair, he has some more depth than that. On a thematic level, he very much serves as a critique of traditionalism, masculinity, and conservative values. And if you're gonna cry about me making this woke and political, go away, I didn't want you here to begin with. Because it is undeniably a core part of his character. His outlook on women, honor, and how the world works in general all support this. Sure, he may not be religious, but that more so stems from the very macho ideologies that come with the Yakuza territory. And even so, the staunchly atheist viewpoint that he has become a more common trend in conservative circles in recent years. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention his backstory. Denji killed his grandpa after he signed a contract with the zombie devil in exchange for more power, but ended up turning into a zombie himself. Sideburns doesn't really care about the specifics though. Denji killed his sweet old child-enslaving Yakuza gramps, and now he deserves to die 100 deaths. He gets the Katana devil surgically implanted to even the playing field. He is therefore the only antagonist in the entire series that only sees Denji for Denji and not Chainsaw Man, and outside of Makima, the only one to personally hate him. All of the others' beef stem from Pochita. He alone wants to dismember the 16-year-old. Another aspect that's core to his character is the lack of an official name. I call him a bunch of different things throughout the course of this video, but in the manga he is only ever referred to as Katana Man or Samurai Sword, depending on the translation. He doesn't have a real name, and that's very much on purpose. A name would mean something to latch onto, an entry point to sympathy, but that would fundamentally go against what he is. We as readers should never be able to agree with him or see his side on something, and through that Fujimoto teaches us that the aforementioned concepts are bad. If he had a sad backstory, an actual relationship with the Katana devil, or even just a name, someone out there would latch onto him in an idolizing manner. By making him as flat and pathetic as possible, Cayman becomes a statement against who he is. Finally, you can't have a Chainsaw Man character analysis video without bringing up the rats. For those who don't remember, Aesop's fable about the country mouse and the city mouse is a central part of Chainsaw Man's character writing. It's first teased during Aki's backstory, but Reze gives the proper explanation. It goes, would you rather be the country mouse, who's safe but isn't living the high life due to a lack of good food, or the city mouse, who can eat whatever it wants, whenever it wants, yet constantly runs the risk of being killed by humans and cats? Basically, do you prefer to be safe, or are you about that high risk, high reward lifestyle? Every single character, without exception, fits into one or the other. Aki is the city mouse, Reze is the country mouse, Denji is the city mouse, even though he wants to be the country mouse, Asa is the country mouse who wants to be the city mouse, and so on. And it should be quite obvious where Kataniel falls. I mean, he basically says it himself when his henchmen beg him to escape to the countryside, but he decides to stay in the city to kill Denji. High risk, high reward. Cayman's the sewer rat. The core concept of Samurai Sword is, as I said, to be the opposite of Denji in every single way possible, which is very apparent in their designs. Part 1 Denji wears primarily white, so he is dressed in all black. Denji skips the jacket on his uniform, so K-Man has a trench coat. Chainsaw Man's teeth are sharp and disorderly, while Katana Man's are ordered and square, very much reflecting their characters. Denji's design is very animated, lots of rounded edges and sporadic poses, and as a contrast, Sam is extremely square, sharp and rigid. Even his human design is meant to be a counter to Denji. Gramps was probably 70-something, which would mean that this guy can be no older than 30, despite his looks. He had sideburns at 12 years old, so I think he was doomed from the start. Anyway, look at his hair. He may not be conventionally attractive, but it's very well groomed, and emphasizes yet again the square shape language. He has a strong build, prominent cheekbones and bags under his eyes to really sell that younger than he seems look. Now, look at Denji. Part 1 Denji, to be exact. He's a scrawny ass kid with the most babyface to ever babyface. His hair is bright and unkempt. Everything about him is Katana's polar opposite. Part 2 Denji, however, is interesting in this regard, because now he has inched closer to the man of the hour. He's more muscular, he wears darker colors, and his expression is a hell of a lot more tired. While Denji has become more depressed and mellowed out, K-Man has become a lot more wild in his posing, and maybe it's just because of the art style shift, but I think his face has also become softer. Another very important part of his design is the weapon he represents. What's the weapon that is as far away as possible from chainsaws? Chainsaws are wild, brutal and unpredictable. They're mechanical and loud, yet a symbol of innovation. Their original purpose was to cut open pelvises during childbirth, so even though they're often makeshift weapons, they are in a way a symbol of life. Katanas, on the other hand, are solely weapons. They're sleek, they're beautiful, they're elegant, but they're also old and antiquated. Humanity has progressed past the need for them, so using them in the modern day would be tantamount to making a statement about rejecting modern ideals, a return to tradition. Not that any of that reflects onto Denji and Katana Man, nuh-uh. I know recapping story beats is the last thing you want in your analysis video, but some important snippets of his character can only be examined in context. And while it won't exactly be brief, I'm not artificially making this longer than it has to. Well, I mean it's nicer to have a longer runtime, but my point is that this will help form a more cohesive image of his character. Capiche? Okay, let's go. K-Man's introduction is kinda ingenious. We've just seen Makima get gunned down and the entirety of Special Division 4 is in a precarious spot. Then we cut to the main gang eating some Chinese food and this weird old guy starts yapping out of nowhere, calling the food inedible and insulting anyone who enjoys it. This simple act sets him up immediately to be Denji's antithesis. Because just last night, at least from the reader's perspective, it was revealed that Denji will eat anything if it has any nutritional value. He was constantly starving growing up, and outside of girls, the thing he always wanted most was good food. So simply insulting the ramen makes Katana Man irredeemable from the get-go. To hammer it home further, the critic continues plattering about how nice his grandpa was. Even though he was Yakuza, he only killed a handful of women and children. This is probably a lie, but it puts him in a similar, yet opposite position to Denji. Gramps sheltered K-Man from the reality of the Yakuza, while he kept Denji away, only using him as a dog on a leash. Once ignorant because of parental love, the other because of hatred and greed. Then he proceeds to blow Denji's brains out. He fires and misses Aki, and fires again and hits Himano in the chest. Power punches him and Aki brings out the dog to chew on him. The dog, not really a fan of the taste, pieces out after Big Man cuts his way out of its forehead, revealing that he too is a hybrid like Denji. Aki assesses the situation, realizes he has no choice but use the sword, stabs the old man a couple times, he gets fucked up, and it looks like they won. But before they can bounce, Akane Sawatari shows up and revives the loser, proceeds to do the first of many of his favorite move, which I like to call the gambler's fallacy. Keep spamming the same attack and you'll win eventually. Changing it up would be an admission of defeat. Anyway, Aki gets sliced and Himano sacrifices herself before K-Man finishes him off. Slicing something intangible is a bit hard, so he gets turned into Swiss cheese, until Sawatari steps in with the red card, forcing the Ghost Devil off the field. Before piecing out, however, Ghost pulls Denji's heartstrings and he revives. He fights Katana a bit, but eventually makes the mistake of thinking that Sideburns actually cares for his allies, and he proceeds to slice them both in half. Keep this in mind. They then try to escape with Denji's upper half doing his best Gojo cosplay, but are interrupted when Makima decides to give her long distance love. Akane and the human pincushion survive and try to get the boy into the car, but are interrupted again when Kobeni shows up to secure her bonus, absolutely mauling K-Man and forcing Sawatari to scramble. Next time we see him, his goons want him to escape to the countryside with the rest of the top brass, but he rejects, saying that Gramps would have wanted him to fight. When Denji eventually shows up to get his get back, we get what's probably one of the last moments of actual reasoning with Katana. He says that depending on how Denji plays his cards, they would be willing to turn themselves in. All he needs to do is die. First part is most likely a lie, and Denji wouldn't take the deal either way. Samurai Sword also slanders the 16-year-old a bit, saying how even though he also got his heart replaced, he feels bad when he accidentally kills a zombie. So why doesn't Denji feel atrocious for murdering Gramps in cold blood? This moment is why I wanted you to keep the slicing incident in mind. Katana Man is an unsympathetic hypocrite, or at least just delusional. He only cares for his allies when it's beneficial to him. Anyway, they fight a bit. I'll skip forward a while. I'm not gonna bother describing the choreography, but K-Man starts spamming his ult, cutting off both of Denji's arms. Denji taunts him, saying he can still fight with the chainsaw in his head, and Katana decides to target that next. Big mistake though, Dennis took the lesson Kishibe taught him to heart, and just lied, using his leg instead. Large Man is then bisected in the opposite direction as the earlier slicing, because there you know, opposites. His final moment in this arc is the most fitting end for his character. Tied up naked on the train tracks, Denji realizes that he wouldn't be satisfied just sending him to jail. He committed the worst crime of all after all. He took a beautiful woman from this world. So he gets the brilliant idea to hold a contest together with Aki to see who can make him scream the loudest. How are they gonna do that? By kicking him in the nuts repeatedly, of course, sending a requiem to the heavens. Even though Himeno's looking up at them right now. The most hypocritical, evil and pathetic man gets the most pathetic ending possible. And he deserves nothing more. It also ensures that as long as he lives, the hatred for Denji will never die down. This is a crime with no just retribution. Denji needs to die 1,000 deaths. Next time we see him is a good while later, when he has to fulfill his contractual obligation as a hybrid and pops up to Makima's mixer with the rest of the weapons. His main purpose here is to show that none of these guys are in control of themselves. He's the fifth one to speak after the 4 new weapons, and his line is very deliberately out of character. We know his sexist ass isn't addressing any woman like this. He has been neutered and collared by the state, much like the rest of his organization. After that, he tries to dismember Pochita a couple times with the good old 1-2, but it goes as well as you'd expect. In round 2, he tries to do a combo attack with Swordman, but while they're both goats in my heart, they're more fraudulent than anyone else in the field. After this, we don't see him for another 50 chapters. Katana Man had no place in the normal part of Denji's life, so it's only when the sun sets on that chapter that he reemerges from the shadows, more pissed than ever. I mean, Chainsman kicked him in the balls and killed his grandpa, so why is he stuck as a public safety lapdog while the brat gets a religion named after him? So from his perspective, there really is no such thing as justice with Chainsaw Man. After that, the Fire Devil contractees activate, and K-Man, stuck in Ground Zero, gets a whole buffet of chainsaw children to slice up. While infiltrating the Devil Containment Facility, Asa and Fame run into the one man who might out-sexist my king. After stalling a bit, look who breaks through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. It's Nail Fiend. And him too, I guess. Just when you think they're about to enter a good old kerfuffle, Asa puts 2 and 2 together and realizes through Sammy's shouting that he doesn't know what he's actually protecting. Confronted by this, it leads to one of my favorite panels, and an immediate heel turn. Killing Chainsaw Man is the reason his heart still beats, and no threats public safety makes can top that. So he joins the merry band, and becomes my favorite iteration of himself, just hating from the sidelines. He's not gonna help with the Denjenga, chores are for children. Oh, Quan Chi's here. Do I need to tell you how the fight between the strongest humanity has to offer and this bum goes? Yeah. Anyway, they get out and it's revenge time. The second Denji wakes up, Mr. Katana runs out of the bath to take his shot. A not shot, that is. He instantly wants to jump into round 3, but Denji doesn't want to transform into Chainsaw Man ever again because he's a bit sad. He needs to find Naita before even thinking about fighting this grown-ass man. So K-Man continues to tag along with these high schoolers to spawn camp Denji when he's himself again. Fami suggests to eat something to cheer up, but on the way there, the geezer has other ideas. Nothing cheers up a man faster than boning a woman. Asa doesn't like the idea at all, but Denji gets swept up with the concept. So they end up going to his brothel, only to, well, not go there. Oh well. I don't feel comfortable discussing 167, and it's not relevant here, so let's skip forward to when they arrive at Death by Sushi. After arriving at the sushi restaurant, he's kinda kept off screen until it's go time. This is the calm before the storm, and having him chattering would kinda ruin that. But after Barum sits his ass down and the fatty tuna comes rolling down the conveyor, we get these two beautiful panels of him. Yech, indeed. Denji proceeds to lose his marbles and ignores the laws of human anatomy to crush Barum's neck. Pochita then aura forms for a bit, but who cares about that? K-Man. K-Man does. He won't let this stand, so as a mirror to the end of part 1, the goat steps onto the field, transforms, and is about to hit the dog at the same time as Yoru and aging, and it goes as well as all the other times. This time though, he's also a nuisance post-mortem. His fat ass almost crushes Yoru, but she kicks him away, and he's unfortunately down for the count. The last time we see my glorious king in the manga as of recording this is in chapter 191, when Yoshida confirms that him, alongside Saigi, Nobana, and Haruka have all been captured. No need to undress him for that though, Fujimoto. I mean, I'm not complaining, but, you know. The Chainsaw Man anime is a divisive topic for some godforsaken reason. I really love it though, the only gripes I have with it are so minor that it doesn't affect my overall opinion. But does it change much when it comes to Katana Man? No, not really. He's voiced by Hamano Daiki in Japanese and Jason Marnoka in English, both doing stellar jobs at it. Both bring that dark, grumbling, monotone vibe that you get from him reading the manga. They really sell the fact that this is a grown man beefing with a high schooler. The other dubs are also probably good, I've not bothered to find them though. But the actual anime itself keeps almost everything in regards to K-Man as close to the manga as possible. Sure, not every panel gets adapted one-to-one, his hybrid form reveal and Daising Aki both have more aura in the manga, and the close-up of his face when his family jewels are being shattered are skipped. Those are all pretty minor, all things considered. There are, however, two bigger ones. The Aki vs K-Man fight is one of the most heavily criticized parts of the adaptation, and I can see both sides. On the one hand, the fight in the manga feels really nimble and agile, with some panels not possible in any other medium. But on the other hand, the anime version has some real weight to it and highlights Katana Man's lack of skill better. Both have their own strengths and weaknesses. The other difference is the beginning of Chainsaw vs Katana round 2. It skips the transformation part and goes straight away into K-Man launching himself and Denji out of the building. And instead of landing on top of the train, they first wrestle a bit on the rooftops before getting on the public transport. At this part in the manga, Sideburns kicks Denji into the train car immediately, but in the anime, they stop and chat a bit on the roof first, but why Denji's even fighting in the first place. They also trade a few blows there too, but the rest of the fight's pretty much identical. Overall, I'd say this is a good change. It makes the fight more intense and climatic. It's a good way to end the season, and the manga version was a bit too short anyway. I think Katana Man's portrayal in the anime might just be superior to the manga. Not everything's perfect, of course, but I think that the pros outweigh the cons. I love conjecture and coincidences. Make a story long enough and eventually some characters start showing similar patterns. So here's a few that can be seen as Sammy's mirrors. Denji. I've already said what I wanted to say on the topic, so instead I'll highlight some points from Deep Fried Wumi's great thread on the topic. Firstly, their deep ties to sex. Denji worships the mere notion of it. Anyone who hasn't read Chainsaw Man but knows about it thinks he's just the sex guy. And while it may not be fully true, his deep admiration of sex is a core part of his character. K-Man, however, views it as just something to make you feel good. There's no beauty in it, it's just like smoking a cigarette to him. Hi, editing me here. Katana owns a brothel for this very reason. It's just another revenue source to him. Him, of all people, saying that sex is his quick fix solution is meant to show the reader that it isn't. Because as I said earlier, Katana Man is always wrong. They're also both very stupid. You can't really blame Denji for it though, he never really had a chance to go to school, so when he says he can't read, you feel bad for him. K-Man, however, has a basic education, it's just that his worldview doesn't line up with reality at all. The necessary evil spiel that the Yakuza constantly spout has just become "we are superheroes" to him through repeated childhood exposure. Both are also constantly losing because they are trying the same thing over and over again. Denji in terms of love and Katana in terms of battle. Finally, they're also the only two characters that have been strung up by the Curse Devil. This doesn't have any deeper meaning that I could think of, it just kinda happened. Mirisugo, Swordman, obviously has to have some sort of connection to his Sugoi uncle. I mean, just look at their transformation triggers. We're still praying for the boy to return. It doesn't feel like he has had his time to shine yet, but there's still some stuff that can parallel the big man. Namely, their relationship to Denji. I don't need to reiterate just how much Samuel hates Denji. I've done that enough. But Miri, he's the opposite. He's extremely grateful to Denji for freeing him from Makima's control, and all he wants is to be Denji's friend. Unfortunately, he has fallen into the wrong circles and been indoctrinated by the Chainsaw Man Church, which eventually leads him to having to fight his idol, all the while still wanting to be his friend. Katana Man, on the other hand, wants nothing more than to kill Denji. Unfortunately for him, after Denji got reassembled, he was too depressed to give a worthy battle, which forced the two to become allies. I can't call them friends, because they still hate each other, but this is as close as it gets. So Miri and Cayman's positions are reversed from how they want them to be. Kinda like how your left hand is mirrored from your right. Baron Bridge, another man in the biggest Denji hater competition, right alongside Makima and you-know-who. Of course the two adult men, who despite the same high schooler, would have some similarities. Their biggest connection is the reason behind their vitriol. Katana Man is pissed because Denji sliced up Gramps, and Baron ruins Denji's life because he killed Makima. Both the victims were people who believed themselves to be necessary evils, but were more evil than necessary. Both Baron and Cayman don't look at the situation objectively though, they only saw Denji take away their loved ones. In Baron's case, that love was very much just one-sided. They're also both very sexist. Both Baron and Cayman only view Asa as Chainsaw Woman, an accessory to Denji. Katana may be a fan of her poetry for some reason, but he continually denies her autonomy and words. Mr. Bridge, however, viewed her lower than Denji's dogs and cat when deciding who to kill in front of him. Their main difference is how they go about their revenge. Katana Man's main similarity to Denji is his straightforwardness. Through some bullshit code of honor, he wants to fight Chainsaw Man straight on. He always transforms any chance he gets and always loses immediately. Baron, on the other hand, he's a very cunning man. Even though he's arguably one of the main villains of Part 2 alongside Death and Yoru, we haven't officially seen him transform once. Why I say officially is because at the time of recording this, it's speculated that he may be Fake Saw Man. Either way, he mainly fights behind the scenes, orchestrating plans to destroy Denji's life from the shadows in an attempt to imitate Makima. There's also a big difference in how personal their conflicts are. Katana is in it for a completely personal grudge against Denji, while Baram has a parasocial relationship with Chainsaw Man, much like Makima before him.
Dude,
this guy
are so fucking funny, they make me want to merge without looking!
Yeah, the depth is a nice bonus, but the main reason why I like Earl Katanaga so much is because he's funny to watch. For me, his peak is in Part 2, when he's completely flanderized and basically a parody of himself. Part 1 Cayman may have hated Denji, but he could still hold a conversation. His bargaining before round 2 is something that would seem entirely out of character by Part 2. I guess 2 years of being a slave to public safety and having your entire criminal syndicate implode because of a teenager would make anyone go insane. Nowadays, all his dialogue is either A. vitriol or B. sexism, but I think this simplification has some depth. The streamlining of his values can be seen as a commentary on right-wing radicalization. His eloquence has completely eroded to show his despicable core. And just to clarify, it's not the bigotry itself I find funny, it's how pointless, over the top and out of place it is. No one addresses him and nothing would change if he wasn't there, so the fact that he gets precious panel space to say ludicrous shit is hilarious to me. This panel should really explain everything you need to know about why I'm making this video in the first place. So far I've only presented one perspective on this guy, my own. But to be able to call this the definitive samurai sword essay, I took to Zitter and asked the people for their takes on the big guy. I wasn't expecting much, but 50 responses! There's no way for me to give each of them equal attention, so I'll be prioritizing the people with the takes I hadn't thought of, or the people that follow me. Sorry, not sorry. But you now know what you need to do if you wanna be in a future video. Love him, he's the best. I love to hate him. I adore him. That's my goat. I love that autistic man. I love Katana Man. I wish I remember where I got this from, but I like the contrast between how his whole worldview is ruled by family loyalty and honor in opposition to Denji, being an orphan unrestrained by blood ties. This is a juicy one I missed. Denji's perpetual motion machine, constantly finding new family members and seeing them die before his eyes, yet always moving forward, contrasted with Katana Man's eternal grudge, based solely on one dead old man. Denji's always looking forward, trying and failing, yet always getting back up again. K-Man's always looking back, blind to the people around him and cursed into solitude by his own hand. To Denji, blood has no meaning, unless it wants to become the president. But K-Man lives and dies by his familial ties. Also, this is probably gonna be said a lot, but the fact that a stubborn traditionalist old man commits the same attack every time is hilarious. I love how obsessed he is with Chainsaw Man, to the point of having a crash out when he sees the chainsaw zombies. Part 1 Katana Man is a great antagonist. Him taking out Denji, Aki and Himeno was the cherry on top of the chaos on the attack of public safety. Part 2 Katana Man is okay. He just doesn't stand out as much to me. Also, it's wild how we still don't know his real name. I absolutely love Katana Man. Ignoring the fact that the dude's hilarious in part 2, I genuinely like that he's like early Venom, nonsensical, generally believing that he's a good guy, trying to kill a teenager for the most petty and stupid reasons, etc. And you can see in part 2 that he's really not on that level of evil. You can just compare his and Barham's reaction to Naruto's head on the plate. Plus he got really mad when those CSM church members turned into pseudo Chainsaw Mans. So it's interesting to see this side of him. I don't know if Naruto's skull was the best example here. Barham was boasting about it, and Katana wasn't even that shocked, just a bit grossed out. Easily the funniest character, bro. One of my favorite characters. His weapon form is one of the coolest, he is comic, even if he's Denji's first enemy for his grandfather. We need to see more of this guy. Hated him in part 1, thought he was lame AF. In part 2, he's one of my favorite characters. I'm neutral, he kinda lost some aura in part 2. He's a really interesting character. I like how he's almost an opposite to Denji, and he's entertaining when he's constantly failing. He has some amazing dialogue too. Yeah, I've quoted him a bunch of times throughout this video, just because he has so many banger lines. Coldest dialogue only behind Makima and Kishibe. He's funny, my goat, the best there is. I like that he wanted to revenge his father, I don't remember, but I don't like that he can't see that his father was using Denji. He's one of the funniest characters in the manga right now. I wonder if he'll ever manage to get an actual win. He's there, good when he's used properly by the story, bad when given time to be his own character and remind me why I wanted to join in on his ball busting. His classic Yakuza aesthetic and design is not talked about enough. I probably should have looked deeper into his design inspirations, but yeah, he fits pretty cleanly into that aesthetic. He's really stupid, he doesn't learn more than one move, he doesn't seem to improve at all in any way, not even fighting. Yes, the best hybrid form, hat included for some reason, is fun to read, but not too fun. Overall, I like him, but he has no place in the story at the moment. I think he's cool, although he's kind of a dick sometimes. One grievance is that skull and service cap in his devil form. I like him because of his parallels with Denji, and he has a cool hat. I think it's a great representation of toxic masculinity, and also a very fun character to watch. It's like watching a bug go around doing stupid shit. It's awesome. Very interesting representation of how the patriarchy leashes men. Katana Man's hatred, bigotry, fragile masculinity shaped by evil men, cramps, and self-isolation are ultimately destructive and self-destructive, which made him an easy target for a weapon. I know I mentioned that Katana Man was a critique of masculinity, yet didn't really go deeper into it. But this is a much better explanation than I could ever hope to write, and it actually comes from someone that knows what they're talking about. He's a good foil to Denji, and I think there's a slight sadness to him with the way he blindly idolizes Grandpa. Also, when he wanted to take Denji to the brothel, the implication is that an older Yakuza did that to him too. Love this guy so much. At first I found him cool, just like any other CSM villain, but I really started liking him in part 2 when we got to see his personality more and how pretty he is. My love for the character can be summed up with this pick, in a lovably evil loser way. Honestly, I think it's funny that Katana Man's hatred can be summed up as someone in their 30s beefing with someone who only recently became an adult. The best design in all of Chainsaw Man. People call him a fraud, but he's only lost battles with Chainsaw Man and Quan Chi, the two most powerful weapons in the verse. Katana Man might not be my favorite character, but he's certainly got my favorite design. You forgot to mention how he lost to Aki before Akane stepped in, got mauled by Kobeni, and one-shot by Pochita. Thrice. I like his character. I love the Katana v Chainsaw fight back in season 1, and his transformation looks sick as hell. All in all, he's a pretty cool side character, former antagonist. He's biased and crazy, but I love him. Great comedy villain. I think he's funny and a spoiled grown-ass man. He stinks and he's ugly. I hope he loses a fight one more time before the manga ends. I fucking love him, Lamau. He's such a loser. I think Katana is an entertaining character, both funny, despicable, and a loser. Hey, calling him a loser is my job. I love him. I don't think him being such a big failure adds that much to anything. So he, and I say this unironically, needs more aura, because when I feel that bad and embarrassed for a character, I can't avoid being affected negatively a bit. I love him. He is a nice representation of the conservative stereotype, but still quite entertaining. Dare I say, it's inspiring seeing him constantly bust through walls, yelling, "Where is Chainsaw Man?" after countless deaths. Nice side character and villain. Fort ass. Those sure were some takes. I'm really glad that this many people like this creature, I was expecting a lot more responses saying that he was lame and annoying. I think I've illustrated clearly enough the reason why he lost aura in part 2, but I can understand some people missing that version of him. This section is guaranteed to age like absolute dog shit, but it will be fun to look back on regardless. So what's in store for Samurai Sword? I don't really know. I mean, ideally he'd stick around in the sidecast, giving mean-spirited commentary from the peanut gallery. That was when he was at his peak, and I think Fujimoto really enjoyed drawing that. But that's precisely the reason why I am worried. I remember hearing that when writing the Gun Devil arc, Fujimoto realized he needed to give the arc more emotional weight and made the decision to kill off one more character. But he couldn't decide between Angel and Kobeni, so he asked his assistant. The assistant, or was it editor, pleaded to let Angel live since they liked him more, but because Fujimoto is as sick and twisted as he is, he knew he had to kill off Angel, since if the assistant was more invested in him, the audience would be too, and therefore give it that emotional punch that he wanted. So could I see Katana Man dying? Unfortunately, yes. Death needs to make one hell of a statement when the promise day comes, and there's no better way to do that than to kill a character we know to be immortal. Yeah, there are other weapons, but Barem isn't dying there, and neither is Miri, hopefully. Reze is never coming back and Quan Chi doesn't fit the bill. That leaves Spear and Whip, and while they are immortal, they aren't as beloved. And like the example proved, Fujimoto loves to hurt us. But as long as Cayman survives the promise day, I don't think he'll ever die. It would run counteractive to what he represents if he did. We can always hope and dream for utopia, but no matter how close we come to it, there's always gonna be those that are against it. Those whose prejudice has consumed them, and hate and hurt others just for the sake of it. Sure, we can mitigate their role in the world, lock them up and hide them away. But they will always be there. Conservatism and spite are concepts that are impossible to erase. In a normal shonen, the character representing these values would obviously be defeated and or killed. But this is Chainsaw Man, and here, no one gets a happy ending. If you ask me, I think he'll be depowered and thrown into a cell to rot away. But there's a chance he'll be chained to public safety forever, becoming the true necessary evil he once thought himself to be. Fujimoto, who never thought of any of that. He probably did. Hopefully. Either way, I've now put way too much thought into a character no one should really think about. Hop onto the Cayman agenda, the only stock that's always going down. Your life savings will be gone, but it will be worth it. I promise. You may be wondering why there's so much time left on this video if we're already at the outro. And that's because I'm clinically insane. What you're about to be subjected to is a ranking of every single panel that features Katana Man. But if you stick it out, or skip forward I guess, I can promise you a sweet reward on the other side. Without much further ado, bye from me, subscribe, and enjoy.
this dust, more laugh, wait, this shit, rise, stretch, grow,
this
stand, hunt, fight, feast,
this
kill, burn, stuff,
this
dust, more laugh, wait,
this
shit, rise, stretch, grow,
this
stand,